I'll be 30 very soon in August.
What is for you now in a place like Oberhausen to have a retrospective?
It's such an honor, you feel like honored and very proud also at the same time, because it's just very hard. It's not evident to make films from where I come from. There is nothing put in place, no film school, no film funding, almost no cinemas. I think it's now 10 years since I started to make films. So it's like at the end of a decade, and I can look back and feel proud and grateful also of my path.
Cedric, mama now hard.
When I grew up, there was no access to the international world of cinema. I could watch many Hong Kong movies, action movies, and Bollywood movies, and some Hollywood B movies. And from the first film, I just had this big desire, this big envy of making cinema. And the conditions were not always the best, but it's been a long way until now. And I can say that something changed actually when I came to Switzerland in 2014 to Winterthur Film Festival. And this was a big discovery of the possibilities and how intimate short films can be. And I think something clicked then.
Charles amakuru mwiriwe nagerageje kubahamagara ariko telefone ntago iri gukunda kugira ngo tuze kuba twahura ku mugoroba tuvugane kuri projet mbere ko dushutinga ejo nakeka ko ari byiza bya ngo twitegure.
We have the impression that one of the thread of your part is also the fact to reflect in a more or less conscious way, probably at the beginning more in an unconscious way, but to reflect cinema. There is always this presence of the medium.
And that's interesting actually to look at, because I guess some things can come even like unconsciously. And it's maybe that's how it's interesting to look at the whole body of work. And some things start to come out, some patterns and some common aspect of the films. And myself, I never set out to define this aspect of my work, but when I look back, that's there, and it became, of course, more apparent in the Liberators, because even the whole process of making a film is partly included in the film.
C'est bon. Yeah, so I wait until someone comes to open and...
Very often it's called autofiction. You are also there as an actor. Was it this aspect deliberate, or it's just an urgence from your side to speak about yourself or to put yourself, your own experience at the center of your films?
I think that's something I always had, and then it becomes more clear with time. I think the first time it became overt, it was in the Liberators, for sure, and there was a sense of emergency there. I just got in a new place, and I had to make a film there. So I only had myself as a subject then. If we talk about the Liberators, so it was a Congolese grocery, and this grocery, people were meeting every evening to talk about stories and everything, and they were talking about politics. And for me, it was interesting to be so far away what I would call these realities of politics of the countries I came from, and then to find this in this very small place. It was a very small grocery, which became a bar every evening. The people didn't want to be filmed. So it's like they pushed the film back to me, and I became this person who's trying to make a film but who's failing because nobody wants to be part of this student film. So I became the subject. But I think this began already from an interest I already have. I feel like every story starts with me first. And I write roles for people. You don't need to be actors. Don't be afraid. You don't need to perform.
Et ce besoin, ce n'est pas seulement alimentaire, c'est aussi un besoin de communication.
The representation of subjectivity in general in your film is the use of sound.
I mean, it's just interesting because when I grew up, for example, the medium which we had easily access to was always radio. I have a relationship with sound which is also like playful, because I always in the post-production I like to be open and to be playful with sound, and I never dare to sound as something that should be realistic. I don't really. This is not my big motivation. Sound is like something of its own in a film as an image, and they can meet to create something which maybe is not plainly there in the image to begin with. And also I edit my films always, and I edit the sound, and I'm not a professional sound editor. There's something artisanal with it, where I want to play with it, where I want to try things, and where imperfection also it's part of the process. Yeah.
Ça ne passera rien. Un taux peut être folle aussi, mais je vais maîtriser la situation. Vous la trouverez à la rue de Berne, hein? Juste en dehors d'un café.
I guess these films also always represented a period I was going through myself. Like since I came to Geneva, it's like the main characters were a little bit like an extension of myself. And when you see, for example, Kesaline trying to record the sounds where she works of people, it's like a way for her to go beyond the routine and the mundane and to enter another life, or almost to get an outlet in another life, longing for something else, listening to this as if she's gonna find something, another door to something else. But profoundly, it's just it was always a period of the filmmaker also, which were like feeding these characters. When I started to make films, I always felt kind of lost, I always felt like, okay, I went to so many workshops where we learn about the 3-act structure, but I was never satisfied. Okay, if I master this 3-act structure, then, I'm not sure it's what I'm really looking for. And when I met Kibu, which was like maybe in the second year of filmmaking, so when I watched Grey Matter, I finally felt like it's an encounter I'm having, because this is a director from Rwanda, born and raised in Rwanda, doing this film. It was like a door opening inside me. And then I got to know him, and he gave me like 2 terabytes of movies. And this was the first introduction to what they call what's cinema. And when I came to a film school, I never felt like I was behind in terms of film knowledge, because of all these huge consumptions of this cinema, and this Kibu played a big part in it. And he's been like a mentor to me. We exchange on a daily basis. And I'm glad actually that he's curating also my program in Oberhausen. Yeah, so in the case of Waiting, it was written by Kivu, and it was just actually also like a discovery for me. How would it be like to direct a film I didn't write? And it's actually different. I mean, co-directing, I don't even think about this, but in the writing process, it's interesting because you need to leave room for the other and to find the right balance. And it was just another kind of experience.
ushaka kugenda kuva aho utuye kwihunga kera kabaye araza byarangiriye aho.
How is it for you, this confrontation with more essayistic form?
You know, Versus is a film I made very quickly, like in the making of it. I think I shot it one afternoon. But it's from notes I've been taking different times of my life, and especially when I came to Geneva, I was having like a sort of diary. And Versus is almost like this. Bits and pieces of memories and of feelings, and the essayistic form felt it was like very instinctive even for me too, because I like the process of editing and then using sound and what comes from that. You know, in Rwanda, for example, we have a very complex poetry, and it's not discovered by the work. Influences also from this other art form, you know, that are there, and that doesn't need to make to be narratively driven, but which also convey emotions. And there is a little bit of that also in the form, because it's a period also where I was very much interested in the form, and the form as part of the substance. And the essay itself was something that I did without even not thinking so much, because I remember we're learning at school about the essay, but you know, sometimes I feel like this is actually how I should have been doing. This is how I should have been making this film and that film, because cinema can be so many things. The whole idea of Versus is also these two sides of things, two sides of one person who are like in conversation. And this also says much about the process, you know, which is more about the intimate and the instinctive, and trying to find something truthful there than in the planned, perfect, with all the means and everything in place, you know.
Igitinya kurusha ibindi ndorerwamo ku nkuta ibitaro udukoko imikoro yo bwigunge nyiri muto ntashobora kubona bagenzi banjye kuko babaga bagiye gukina umupira n'iyindirimbo ikinagurira.
Something that creates a mediation for me is the mask. I found this mask one of the very interesting element to play with.
The mask always have this type of role. It can be like creating distance, or it can be so that you feel free sometimes behind the mask. And for me, this is also an interesting aspect. It came from the emergency also of the situation of not having old people to play, you know. There's something interesting actually that happens when you come from a country where you are the majority and all of a sudden you're a minority. You know, there's something of individuation almost that happens, because you are this. You're like a young African. I'm not Philibert anymore, and it's like you learn all these like aspects that are associated with how you look like. You learn this aspect of being black in a European city. I mean, it started in ages, when black and white met, there was always prejudices and everything, and they are still, even in this time we live in, So a mask was also like a symbol of that. In I got my things and left. That was my house. That's where I live. It's always for me very interesting to start with a place, a place with a house, or it's people and places for me at the beginning. And there's always the aspect of the encounter. It's a film that I opened up to people I was going to to be part of it, and to create this character of Eric, who's deceased, to make him a collective person, not just my Eric, but everyone's Eric, So there was a lot of exchange. You have to feel like these people know this person, and not just in words, really, like something more, like their presence. They are really here for this person. Yeah, I wanted to film the faces so much, This is what I'm looking for myself in the film, not the thematic, the plot. I'm looking for this humanity, which can just be in the eyes, sometimes. Yeah, so I wanted to do this, and I left also room for freedom. Like the choreographer, I choreographed his choreography. We talked in the beginning about what I wanted. It sort of changed. He doesn't talk in the movie. He just have this moment where he bursts into a dance. This is not how a funeral would go. Nobody would just burst in dance in a funeral.
Thank you. Leave it alone. Distraction, distortion.
There's always two aspects. I'm interested in the rear, but I'm interested also in the colors and in the staging. Sometimes this is just like my utopia, where like it's only young people who are there and who are just going to share this long evening. They can share, the memories of the deceased person. But it's a construction, anyways. I look at documentary also as a genre, as a genre of the fiction, because I think as long as there is the editing, you cannot talk about truth anymore when you have 40 hours of film and you're just going to do 1.5 hour of film. All these decisions you make, for me, like it's very hard to talk about something as real life just like that. It's a construction.
Destiny, discovery. It's a high, it's a goodbye. Gotta have a plan.
I'm writing my first feature, which uses some of the characters in the short, like Kezaline and the Colonel's character and this neighborhood and the grocery and everything. But sometimes you feel like you're pushed almost to put in the usual things that cinema does with these characters, like integration or the search for papers. And this is not what I want to explore, because it just becomes one story of people and it's reductive and it's just categorizing. And I feel like I have the same issues any person have, Swiss or French or, and I don't know why it should just be special for me because of my skin color, for example, which is funny, So that's quite something that motivates me also to decategorize, and to just remove this logic.
What is your motivation to do cinema?
I would like to know. I think there is a need to express myself just profoundly, and I feel like I exist by doing this, and I just don't exist myself. I exist collectively also, even though it's that personally. I have this big need to do this and to make my intimate things, and I hope it will connect with people differently.